Let me start with a question. Have you ever held something in your hands and thought, how did this survive? Because Philippians is exactly that. This isn't a letter that is written from peace and comfortable environment. This is a letter that is written from custody, from danger, from places where people disappear. I want you to picture this. A man sits with a guard, a chain that links his wrist to a Roman soldier. He doesn't know if he will be free, maybe next month, or he may be executed. And yet he writes about one thing over and over again, and that is joy. Not fake joy, not motivational joy. A joy that makes no sense unless something deeper is true. And that's why Philippians hits different. It doesn't just teach you, it pulls a chair, it sits by you and speaks to you, like someone who knows what suffering feels like and refuses to surrender to it. But here's the tension. Paul isn't only worried about himself, he's worried about people he loves, because the church he's writing to, this warm, generous, faithful church, is beginning to fracture. And if it breaks, the mission breaks with it. Now let's zoom out for a moment. The church lives in Philippi, and Philippi isn't just a city. Philippi is Rome in miniature, Rome in a foreign soil. It was named after Philip II of Macedon in 356 BC. Philippi then became a Roman colony. That means privilege, that means Roman law, that means citizenship, that means pride. Military veterans were everywhere in Philippi. It was a retirement colony. In a place like this, identity is everything. So when Paul starts speaking the language of citizenship, he isn't just being poetic. He is stepping into their deepest pride. He tells them, live as citizens worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then he drops the real bomb. He says, your citizenship is in heaven. In other words, he says, you may live in Rome's shadows, but you do not belong to Rome. That is a dangerous talk in a Roman colony. But the story gets even more tense because of how this church began. Paul arrives around AD 49-50 with Silas, Timothy, and Luke. Normally he goes straight to the synagogue, but not here. There's no synagogue, so Paul walks outside the city to a riverbank, because if anyone is praying, he's probably guessing they will be there. And there he meets Lydia, a businesswoman, a seller of purple, the kind of person who knows people, has influence, and she also has access. And Luke says something that changes everything. That is, the Lord opened her heart. And after that, Lydia opens her home. The house becomes the first base for the European church. But then the story turns. A slave girl is delivered from spiritual oppression. The city reacts to that, and Paul is arrested. And suddenly the missionaries are not preaching by the river, but they are now being oppressed and are bleeding in a prison. Then in that night, an earthquake hits. The door of the prison swings open. The chains are loosened. And this is the moment, this is the escape moment. And the jailer rushes in and he realizes his life is over if the prisoners escape. He's shaking, but Paul and his companions doesn't run. And then he asks a question that still echoes through history. What must I do to be saved? And in that prison house, another household is born into the kingdom. So from day one, the Philippian church is a miracle. A businesswoman, a delivered slave girl, a Roman jailer, different classes, different backgrounds, one new family. That's why Paul loves them so deeply. Because they didn't just believe, they partnered, they sacrificed, they stayed loyal. Paul's tone with Philippi is different. With Corinth, he's correcting chaos. With Galatia, he's fighting for the gospel itself. But with Philippi, it's personal. He says he longs to meet them. And they have proven their love in the most practical way as well. They supported him again and again, giving and receiving. not as faithful followers alone, but as partners. And now Paul is imprisoned and they want to do it again. So they gather a gift, they send it, but they don't just send money, they send a man. And this is where the story gets tightened like a rope. His name is Epaphroditus, and he's not just a courier. Paul calls him my brother, my fellow worker, my fellow soldier. That's not a polite language. That's a war language, because what he's doing is risky. Travel is long. It's dangerous roads. And somewhere along the way, you see Epaphroditus gets sick. Not mild sickness, a near-death sickness. Word reaches Philippi, and the church panics. And Epaphroditus panics too, not because he is sick, but because they are worried. Paul is crushed, and if Epaphroditus dies, the grief will bury him in that prison. But miraculously, Epaphroditus recovers, and Paul sends him back, and with him, he sends this letter. And now we finally understand why Philippians sounds the way it sounds. It's gratitude, it's love, it's warning, it's pastoral urgency. But let me also address, on the other hand, something that is wrong with the church. Here's a painful truth. The danger isn't only persecution on the outside, but the danger is division inside. Two women who labored with Paul, Euodia and Syntyche, are at odds here in the church. And Paul doesn't shame them. He honors them. He begs them because he knows how it works. When the church splits into sides, the gospel gets muffled. And in a Roman colony where pressure is heavy, divisions become an open door for collapse. So Paul reaches out for the strongest weapon. Not his authority, not threats, not his charisma. He reaches for Jesus. This is the beating heart of Philippians. Paul says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Jesus Christ. And then he lays down what the early Christians didn't just read. They also sang the scripture. Jesus went downward even in humility. He went downward in surrender. He went downward in obedience, all the way to death. Then God exalts him. Paul writes about this song in Philippians chapter 2. And Paul's point is clear. That is what leadership is like. That is what unity looks like. That is what church life is built on. It's not built on power. It's not built on status or ego, but it's simply built on Jesus. But Paul isn't only writing about their struggles here. He's writing about from his own struggles as well. And his situation is darker than many people realize. So Philippians places Paul inside the heart of Roman power. He is in custody. His witness has spread throughout the whole fruitorium, and he even sends greetings from Caesar's household. That means the gospel is leaking into places it was never supposed to enter. But here's the twist. Paul isn't only surrounded by danger, he's surrounded by Christian rivalry too. Some believers in Rome preached Christ out of love, but others preached Christ out of envy and selfish ambition, hoping to increase Paul's suffering. Can you imagine that? Paul is chained, and Christians are using his pain as a ladder. And still Paul says, Christ is preached, and in that I rejoice. That line is supernatural. Then he says something even heavier. To live is Christ, and to die is gain. He's staring death in the face, and death is not winning. And you can feel it. This letter has that electricity of someone living in the edge. And now we reach the point where the story becomes bigger than Philippi, bigger than Rome, because what happens next shows us how far this message has traveled. Years pass, the city will fade, the church history goes quiet. Philippi, this bright church, slowly begins to disappear from the records. But here's what doesn't disappear: the song. Decades later, a Roman governor named Pliny the Younger investigates Christians. He interrogates them, and he writes to Emperor Trajan, and he reports something that he cannot explain. He says that these Christians meet before dawn and they sing a hymn to Christ as to a God. Think about this. Slaves singing before sunrise to Christus as to a God. Pliny never read Philippians, but he just described it, because what Paul placed at the center of this letter, the Christ pattern that we talked about, the hymn of Jesus, wasn't just theology. It became worship for the early Christians. They memorized it. It became their identity. It became their strength. So the song went from a Roman colony to the empire's outer edge until Rome itself had to write it down. And Pliny had something else as well. After singing, these Christians bound themselves in an oath not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to betray trust, not to lie. So in other words, the hymn did not just shape their mouths, it shaped their lives too. That's Philippians, a pattern, a song that becomes character. And now we are here. The city of Philippi is gone. The empire that once ruled the world is gone. Most names have been forgotten, but this letter is still alive, still confronting us, still asking us, what do we sing when no one is watching? Who is Lord when the culture says otherwise? What shapes our unity? Is it our status? Is it our fears? Is it our egos? Or the mind of Christ? Because Paul's message is simple and terrifyingly relevant. Unity isn't just optional. Joy isn't just denial. Suffering isn't just meaningless. And Jesus isn't just an idea. He is the model. He is the pattern. He is the power. He is the hope. So the only question left for us is, will we live like citizens worthy of the gospel? And let that song shape us too. Thank you for listening. And if you like this video, please click the subscribe and like button, and I will see you in the next video.